Hey everybody, Kyle Metzger here. I just got done with the season of Opens, my first year in the Opens. It was really exciting, had a lot of fun. One top 10, one paycheck, and then one good rally, we'll call it. So it was a pretty motivating season. We do have some exciting news for next year. I'm gonna fish a few more Opens. But what I wanna do is a little three-part series here and just talk about all three tournaments and what happened and how it played out. Yeah, so let's kick off the series here. So we started out in Toledo Bend. Never been, obviously, from Florida. I didn't know how it was going to set up. I never have ran a timber lake, which is a very interesting thing if you've never done it. I was worried the whole time I was not going to make it through with a lower unit. But, you know, I bought the lanes chart for my, my Lowrances, which I highly recommend if you go over there to Texas. I don't remember the exact name, but they make a chart card that you can insert. It shows you the lanes. Do not get off of it. But it is very good for running if you've never been there before. I was putting stop signs where I needed to turn. The first day, adrenaline, I blew right past one of my stop signs, had to make a U-turn. But it's an exciting lake, a lot of big fish. I had one almost 8 in practice. I had a couple over 5, one over 6. It was an exciting practice seeing big fish. What that meant for the tournament, I wasn't sure. I had a couple patterns working. I knew where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, and then the last full day of practice on, I believe it was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, I had like 25 to 30 bites. We had some rising water, looking at the lake levels. I kind of knew what I needed to do, and I was hoping it was going to pan out. So day one, late boat number. I believe I was down 180s or something. It was weird this year. I was always in the 20s and then like 180s. I don't know how that worked out. I actually had the same boat number twice. But we ran down lake, ran all the way down to a stop sign I had marked, and then idled for a mile just because of precautions. And when you're idling a mile and you're hearing boats running all around you, you get a little nervous. Got back into my first cove, and in that video you seen earlier, one of my first 5 casts, I had that 6+. I was throwing a wacky rig. In practice, I was throwing Wise Guys tackle. This is called their Stogie 5-inch, just a stick bait. It's perfect. It's got the right buoyancy. It's got the right salt blend. I was adding a little scent to it. You know, I threw out there, and I didn't know what to expect fishing kind of a shad spawn. And my line just started trailing off to the right. Well, when I set up, it just kept digging and pulling, drag, and pulling, drag, and pulling, drag. And I'm only running 12-pound vicious fluorocarbon. And it just kept going. I'm like, what did I hook into? Is this a carp? It never came up to jump. It just kept doing those long pulls. I had no clue. You know, fought around the back of the boat. I looked still, my line was all wrapped around my head. It was crazy. And then I got my first glimpse of it, and it was a massive, you know, 6+ pounder. It just worked out. It was hooked, you know, right just outside the mouth. So I don't know if it came up there and just grabbed the tail and started to swim off with it, or what the story was. You know, I wasn't sight fishing, everything was legal. Awesome start. You know, didn't even make it into my cove yet, and I've already got 6 pounds in the box. Went around the corner, and in the next 15 bushes, I filled my limit. I had probably 17 pounds, and I'm, you know, licking my chops saying this is a great start. You don't have starts to tournaments like this where you go into a bay that you had 20+ bites, and now you're crushing them, you know. I started calling by, I think, 9:30, calling out 2.5 pounders with 3 pounders, 3.5s. I had a couple fish marked on bed that I knew they were in there. I didn't know exactly where. And I exploited them. You know, day one, if you watch the video, I hammered down. I had 20+ pounds. Everything was flipping. This is a mobster crawl, again, by Wise Guy Tackle. It's called Crooked Politician. You can see it's purple on this side, if you can see it in the light. And then it's kind of got that watermelon seed red. You're in Texas, you always got to throw red. The plastic on this is perfect. I've tried a lot of different companies, a lot of baits. That texture, that consistency, how it holds the hook, how the bait keeper stays in. You're not changing baits every 2 seconds. The fall, the way the crawls fall. It's the perfect flipping bait. It's what I use across the country. I've used it from New York to Florida and now Toledo Bend. Again, Picasso tungsten. I was using a 1/4 ounce, a little bit heavier because it was flipping buckbrush and cover. So you do want it to get down there. Most of the time it wasn't making it to the bottom. If it made it to the bottom, it was already swimming off the tree. Again, just simple bobber stopper. I went 5/0 hook. I'm not fishing for guppies. A 4/0, I don't love the 4/0. It does fit the bait probably a little bit better, but in this tournament, absolutely no issues. That was the main bait all week. Day one, all except for the big one, everything came on that mobster crawl. Again, 20-pound vicious fluorocarbon, flipping buckbrush, the bases, the backsides, the in-betweens, they were loaded in it. I got done with that first cove, and the first cove was maybe 200 yards to the back, and I think I was 15 fish deep and probably 2 bags down. So it was wild, a great start. I knew one bigger fish. I drove to the back of the bay, again idling, and boom, there was another 4+ I called out with. So I knew that bay had a ton of fish. I didn't even fish the back of it. I said, I'm just gonna leave it for tomorrow if need be. I left there, I went and checked some other fish. I went and threw the big bait. I'm throwing a big glide. This one's a 7-inch. It's kind of rare, it's kind of expensive, so I got it on 65-pound braid there, but it didn't seem to bother them. I could get some big bites on the big bait. It helped out day 2 and day 3 really. Day 2 was kind of boring, I won't lie. Day 2, GoPro had some issues. I had some confidence from my partner. We ran into my cove to start, and he started laughing, and I said, what was funny? And he pointed to the other side of the cove, and that was where his boater started day 1. Completely opposite. We had no idea that's where we were going. It was funny though, that bay was loaded. And as far as I know, I never saw any other boats in there. I had the whole right side of the bay. He said his boater went up into the arm on the north side of the bay, and that's where he caught a 9-pounder. It was actually big bass of day 1. So this bay was absolutely loaded with fish. From there, day 2 again, it was kind of boring. The stick bait pulled me out. I caught one 4+ throwing it. A guy was nice enough to let me, I said, I'm not going to mess with you, and he said, no, go ahead. So I fished down the bank. He was just fun fishing, and I caught a 4-pounder in front of him. But it was around where I caught my, almost 8-pounder in practice. So there was a lot of big fish in these bays I was fishing. I couldn't make the offshore game work. I tried, but there was enough bites up shallow that, it worked out. My big bag day 1 had me in the top 10. Day 2, I stayed in the top 10 with 15 pounds or 14 pounds. And then day 3, again, another 15-pound bag. Completely different day. I honestly didn't even run all the way down to the bay I fished day 1. Water was dropping. I knew it wasn't going to be good. It wasn't muddy. It wasn't clarity. It was just that time of year, those fish are looking for one last push to make, lay eggs, fish shallow, maybe get a little bit of a shad spawn. But after that, no, it was downhill. I knew they were moving offshore. I was fishing some Main Lake cypress trees after that. It worked out a little bit. I committed to the big bait. I stuck it in my hand all day. I had nothing to lose. Actually, where I started, I just kind of was, I don't want to say I gave up, but I knew there was some keeper fish, and I knew it was going to look good and get me paid. Other than that, I didn't have a lot. So after I tried to put some, just keepers in the boat, I ran back north, picked up a Picasso spinnerbait with some wind on it, wind on some cypress trees, caught a couple fish, threw the big bait, and threw it. Got one big bite, that big bite I needed, 4+. And then it was weird. The sun came out in the afternoon. It rained that morning. Sun came out in the afternoon. And there was literally one cove, twice the size of this garage. And it had the right buckbrush. It had the right bottom. And I flipped for 30 or 40 yards and caught 12 fish, I think, in one cove, and missed 2 or 3, maybe 1 or 2 that would have called. Nothing giant, just all solid 2 pounds, 2.5 pound fish in it. And my co-angler, or my Marshall observer, he was looking at me stunned. He couldn't believe how shallow those fish were. And it was, again, flipping that lobster crawl, just flipping it at the base of the trees and just start swimming off. And even up in the shadows, like on just laydown. So yeah, that was Toledo Bend. First stop, Division II, a lot of fun. Anytime you come out with a top 10, especially my first top 10 in an open, I got 2 opens I've fished now. One's a top 10. No complaints, absolutely. The we made good points, which don't really count for anything other than, you know, personal gratification. We made a great paycheck, probably the best paycheck I've ever made fishing. And we did it the right way. We did it fun. You know, if we flipped, and that's anytime you can put a big rod in your hand and big line and a big weight, it's going to be a great event. And that's what we had, was a phenomenal top 10. Oklahoma was coming up next. I'd been to Oklahoma once. I'd never been to Eufaula. I've seen a few videos, but we'll go over that in the next video. I hope you like this one, and stay tuned. Like I say, next year, 2024, we got a lot more coming. Stay tuned.